Hi, I'm Sarah. Welcome to the show. This is a show about luck and how we interpret the events over the course of our life as being either good luck or bad luck. And I think it really depends on the kind of person you are. You know, like I'm a real combination of my mum and my dad. My mum, for example, she sees bad luck everywhere. She sees catastrophe around every corner. I'll give you a perfect example. I was at the park with my mum and my son, right? And my son goes over to the drinking fountain and he puts his mouth on the drinking fountain. My mum instantly says, "Don't let him do that!" That's how she talks, by the way. I'm not a terrible actress. That is the pitch that she lives her life at. She said, "Don't let him do that!" And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Because people have probably been having sex in those swings and then used that as a bidet." I was like, nobody does that. And then there was this horrible moment where I was like, oh my God, have you done that? Was I conceived in a swing? Of course I love my mum, she's amazing. She's just a real downer, you know. I was with her recently, I bought a scratch card. I scratched it, 1-0. My mum instantly went, "Oh, thank God!" I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because knowing you, you probably would have taken that money, bought a jet ski and crashed it into a ferry." Okay. So that's my mum. That's her personality type, right? My dad's a really different kind of character, very different personality. And I think it's that difference between them that's been the real secret behind why they've had such a dreadful marriage. They disagree on literally everything. Although, to be fair, there is one issue that has always united my mum and dad, and that is their mutual hatred of our next-door neighbours. Bloody Mike and bloody Narelle. You want to know what my mum calls Mike and Narelle? New money. Yeah, I know, like there's any other kind in Australia. So my dad's a really different kind of guy. My dad would always quote, I suppose you'd call it like a Chinese Zen parable. It was this story he used to tell and he loved it. And I don't know how famous this story is, so I'll tell it to you now. So there's this Chinese farmer, right? And the Chinese farmer, he's only got one horse. He's got one lame horse. And one day the lame horse bolts, runs away into the hills. And all of the Chinese farmer's neighbours go, "Ah, that's such bad luck." And the Chinese farmer says, "Good luck, bad luck, who can tell?" And a couple of weeks later, this horse returns. Miraculously, the lame horse returns, but it brings with it a whole herd of horses. And the Chinese farmer's neighbours go, "Ah, that's such good luck." And the Chinese farmer says, "Good luck, bad luck, who can tell?" And a couple of weeks after that, and the Chinese farmer's son, he's trying to break in one of the horses. He gets flung from the horse, breaks his leg. And the Chinese farmer's neighbours go, "Ah, that's such bad luck." And I think you've got the pattern here. I think we'll do one more for the stragglers in the audience. A week after that, the Chinese army came to town, recruited all of the able-bodied young men, but they left the boy alone with the broken leg. And the Chinese farmer's neighbours go, "Ah, that's such good luck." And you know exactly what the Chinese farmer said back to them, right? So my dad felt that no matter what happened in your life, you only knew in the fullness of time if it was a good or a bad thing. You know, sometimes something can seem amazing at the time and then in hindsight, it's the worst thing that ever happened to you. Like a lot of marriages. My mum felt that the Chinese farmer's neighbours sounded like a nosy pack of bastards. That's what my mum got out of that Chinese Zen parable. She was like, "They sound worse than bloody Mike and Narelle." So, is something good luck or is it bad luck? And how can we ever tell? Imagine if you could find out. Imagine if you could scroll backwards and forwards through your life. If you could rewind and fast forward through your timeline and figure it all out. That'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? And our first story, my story, starts back in 1986. I was 10 years old. 1986, it was a big year, and it kicked off terribly. The year started with the Challenger Space Shuttle disaster. In 1986, the Challenger Space Shuttle took off, and 73 seconds into its maiden flight, it disintegrated. But in my own life, 1986 was the year where I was just waiting for my parents to get divorced. And it all came to a head on February the 8th. And I remember that because my father had woken the whole family up at 4 a.m. to see Halley's Comet. We were standing out on our lawn. It felt like the whole world was standing out on their lawn waiting to see Halley's Comet. And there's my mum, my dad, my brother Ben. We're all standing outside. Our cat Misty was playing under a Christmas tree that we'd planted in the garden years ago. And the atmosphere was horrible. Mum and Dad had been fighting a lot. I remember my father was just trying to fill the silence that morning with these facts about Halley's Comet. We're just standing there and my father says, the first known sighting of Halley's Comet was in 239 BC by Chinese astronomers. And my mum said, I'm going inside! And my dad said, please don't. Please, I would like us to all see this together as a family. And my mum said, I don't think I can do this anymore. And you want to know what my father did next? He persisted. You know what he could have said? You know what, you're right, screw it. Who wants to see a comet anyway? No, he did not, because we were going to see a goddamn comet. And I get that, I'm a parent now, and I get it. I've had my kids sitting there with vomit down their front and they're screaming, and I'm like the bloody candles, we're singing happy birthday. Happy birthday! My dad, he just kept going. He said, for many ancient civilizations, comets were seen as a sign of bad luck. But in 1066, it burnt so bright that William the Conqueror thought it was a sign of good luck. He said, I like that positivity. And my mum said, well, maybe you should have married William the Conqueror. And next door, just over the fence, bloody Mike and Narelle. They were assembling what looked like the Hubble telescope. And Mike shouts out over the fence, he goes, well, 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 it's the Kendalls. Why the sad faces? Aren't you excited about the comet? My dad said, yes, Mike, we're excited. Then Narelle shouts out. She says, Mike insisted we get this telescope. And I said, but Mike, it's the most expensive one in the shop. And my brother says to my mum, how old are we going to be in 75 years' time? And my mum said, I don't know, darling, I expect we'll all be dead by then. And we just stand there, this broken family, waiting to see Halley's Comet. And my cat, Misty, pounces out of a bush. And suddenly I rewind back to the year 1979. I've scrolled back to my brother Ben's 6th birthday party, and I'm 3 years old. And Ben's invited his whole class. We're having a party out on the front lawn of our house. My brother always loved, and to this day, still loves, the fancy dress party. And the theme for his 6th birthday party in 1979 is outer space. All the kids from his class are dressed up, but it's the 1970s. You couldn't just go online and buy a cheap costume. Back then, if you had a costume party, the costumes, they were homemade. Every mother would curse your name when they saw that invite because they knew that the night before the party, they wouldn't get a wink of sleep. The kids at the party don't look like spacemen. They look like the contents of a recycling bin. They look like they're attending a party themed dressed like the grassy area next to a lay-by. And some of the costumes have had a little less thought put into them than others. My brother is supposedly dressed as Buck Rogers' robot sidekick Tweaky, but really all Mum has done is just covered him in tinfoil. He looks like a jacket potato. I'm 3 years old, I'm in an old bike helmet, also covered in foil, and I'm holding an egg whisk. And one of our neighbours called Sally, she's holding a hula hoop around her waist. Her mum told her she was Saturn. And the adults, they're all drinking Matthias Rosé. Mum and Dad have invited their new neighbours to the party. Mike and Narelle, they seem fun. Narelle sees that Dad's planted a small Christmas tree at the end of the garden. And Narelle says, Christmas trees grow very quickly. Their needles make quite a mess. And my mum chips in, it'll become a hotbed for spiders and rodents. And my mum thinks she and Narelle are going to be great mates. My brother's really upset. He's just opened all the presents and he didn't get what he wanted. My brother has such bad luck when it comes to presents. He'd been nagging Mum and Dad for a pet, but instead he got Lego. And it wasn't even Lego Galaxy Explorer, it was Lego Bathroom. There's a Lego baby in a Lego bath and a Lego mummy with a Lego hairbrush. All he wanted was a pet. He didn't care if it was a cat or a dog or a hamster. And my mum said, "No way! I don't trust anything crepuscular." Creeping around at twilight, I don't think so. Ben says no one ever gets him what he wants. My grandma Shirley, my mum's mum, she tells my brother to show some manners. It's the first time she's spoken since she arrived. She seems uncomfortable about this whole outer space theme. She says aliens are not a topic to be joked about. One kid dressed as Mork walked up to her and said, "Nanu, Nanu," and Grandma Shirley threw a glass of orange juice in his face. My brother's sitting there. He's got all his open presents. My dad's hopping around taking Polaroid snaps to capture the moment for all eternity. And then a door opens and my mum emerges from the house and onto the lawn, and she's holding a cake. The cake she was up until midnight making the night before. The cake was meant to look like a rocket. It looks unnervingly like something else. And what looks even more obscene is that she'd put all the candles around what was meant to be the booster rockets. Yeah. And my mum starts up the song, "Happy birthday to you." And then, like a lot of little kids at their first big party, it all becomes too much for my brother Ben. The noise, the pressure to perform, the complete and total lack of hamsters, or any pet for that matter. His bottom lip starts to wobble, his eyes fill with tears. My dad snaps away regardless, like a war photographer, whose only job is to capture the moment regardless of the suffering. He's hoping against all hope that he'll miraculously get some good luck and the tears will stop and he'll get just one good photo. Come on, just one. Everyone's singing to my brother, he's crying, we keep singing anyway. My mum looks broken-hearted. She's made all this effort. Light the bloody candles, we're singing happy birthday echoes from somewhere down a time tunnel. And now everyone's clocked my brother's tears, the singing peters out. Mike tries to lift the mood by singing an inappropriate song about a man called Tuckett Runt. My dad stops taking pictures. It's all gone to hell in a handbasket. And then, out from underneath the Christmas tree that has just been planted in the garden, a tree that at the time of this story in 1979 was no taller than my 6-year-old brother, emerges a cat. It's black, it's got white socks, it's got a white face. It has no tail. It walks out from under the tree, jumps up on the table, and lies down on the Lego bathroom box. And my brother stops crying. He looks up at my parents and he asks, "Is that for me?" And Mum and Dad look at each other. They have an unspoken conversation about how this could either be the luckiest thing that ever happened or the worst decision they ever made. They look back at Ben and they nod. The cat climbs into Ben's lap, the tinfoil costume crinkles. Ben smiles and he says, "I'm going to call it Misty." And my dad says, "Happy birthday, son." Dad's Polaroid camera snaps. The moment's been captured. And Sally's mum says quietly, "Actually, I know the family who owns that cat." My mum says, "We'll iron out the details later." And suddenly I fast forward and I'm back to February the 8th, 1986. I'm back on the front lawn, I'm 10 years old again. And the sound of Mike and Narelle behind the Hubble telescope, they're shouting, "Oh my God, there's the comet! There's the comet!" And my dad looks up, he goes, "Oh my God, there it is, kids! There's Halley's comet, can you see it?" And I'm 10 years old and I'm looking up the sky and I'm just thinking, oh crap, what does a comet look like? And the sky is really big. Yeah, there's a lot of sky to look at. What I did not know was that 1986 was the worst showing of Halley's Comet in 2,000 years. Yeah, because of the position of the sun and the Earth. Like we needed any more bad luck that morning. And then from next door, Mike shouts out from behind the Hubble telescope. He says, "That was incredible. We could see it really clear through our new telescope. Could you guys see it?" My dad looks at my mum. He says, "Deb, did you see it?" And my mum says, "No!" And then my dad looks at me and my brother. "Did you kids see it?" I'm 10, but I can see the need in his eyeballs. He needed the answer to be yes. And me and my brother look at each other. Yeah, we saw it. That was a great comet. Thanks, Dad. And my dad says, wow, I don't believe it. We saw it. We saw it. We were together and we saw it. And then Halley's Comet just kept on going. It had gone. We had to deal with the real drama of that morning, which was my parents' impending split. And then something fantastic and miraculous happened. Our cat, Misty, she's crouched down at the front of the lawn. She's in front of the Christmas tree, which at this moment in February 1986 stands at about 6 feet tall. And Misty starts making that low noise that cats make when they're about to get into a fight. You know, when they do that. Like there's something in the Christmas tree and it's upsetting her. And we're just standing there, just watching the cat. And then out from under the Christmas tree slithers a 3-foot-long brown snake. They're very venomous, they're very aggressive, quite common on the eastern seaboard of Australia. My whole family is like, ah! We are down the other end of the lawn so fast. I don't even remember running. It was that fast. I was at one end of the lawn and suddenly I was at the other end of the lawn. And we do a quick head count. There's only 3 of us. My father has stayed with the snake and the cat. And he's moving towards the snake. And Narelle shouts out from over the fence. She goes, oh my God, yous have got yourselves a brown snake. My mum snaps in half. She goes, oh, well spotted, Narelle. You see that through your big bloody telescope? Dad's still moving towards the brown snake. The brown snake at this point is in the upright S position, attack position, the most aggressive position. And Mike shouts out over the fence. He goes, mate, don't be an idiot. It's going to attack. And my mum screams out to my father, Phil! You don't have to do this. And I still don't know what was going through my dad's head. I don't know if he was trying to save the cat, if he was trying to impress my mum, or if he just wanted to die. My dad stayed real still. Then he picks up the snake and chucks it at Mike and Narelle. There are so few actions in a life that can rescue both a cat and a marriage. And suddenly I fast forward to the year 2014. I'm 38 years old. I'm on the other side of planet Earth. I'm in my house in London. I'm wearing a Guinness t-shirt and no pants. And I'm sniffing my kid's blueberry-scented felt tip. My phone rings. It's my dad. He wants to FaceTime. I accept the call. And there he is. Wow. His face in the palm of my hand. And I say, hi, Dad. And he says, Sarah, it's me, your father. I say, yeah, I know. I say, Dad, where are you? He says, I'm in the South Pacific. Sarah, why are you wearing a Hitler mustache? I say, I've just been sniffing a blueberry felt tip pen, Dad. I say, why are we whispering? He looks away conspiratorially and he says, I haven't got long. You see, for Mum and Dad's wedding anniversary, Mum wanted to go on a holiday. Dad suggested going to Port Douglas in Queensland. He said it's lovely. And Mum said, lovely if you like box jellyfish. See, for some people the glass is half full, for some it's half empty. For my mum, not only is it half empty, someone's rubbed their ball sack all over the rim. Mum had always wanted to go to Noumea. It's a French territory in New Caledonia. It's in the South Pacific. It's an old French colony, a tropical paradise. So after all these years, Dad surprised her. But I can tell by the way my dad's whispering and his pupils are dilated, things aren't going well. And my dad says, I am not answering any of her calls. And I say, Dad, what's going on? And he says, she's driving me insane. Now, he tells me that in order to get to breakfast every morning, they're meant to walk through the grounds of the holiday resort, a tropical paradise perched on the white sand, palm tree-lined boulevard. But unluckily for Dad, the week before they left, Mum read an article that mentioned how many people die each year from getting hit on the head by falling coconuts. It's more than you'd think, but you'd have to be really unlucky. So every morning, instead of walking the 5-minute walk along the palm tree-lined boulevard, Mum has been detouring around the perimeter of the resort, turning it into a 25-minute hike. A 25-minute hike that takes you through car parks, incinerators, and dumpsters. He said, I've had it. I've had it. I can't do this anymore. I am not walking to breakfast through a car park full of bins. And then my phone starts to beep, and I look at the screen. Now my mum wants to FaceTime. Now I've got to know what's going on here. So I tell my dad, I've got to go. I'll call you back. And I accept the call from my mum. And there her face appears in the palm of my hand. Wow. Her face fills the screen, and I yelp. Her face is purple and swollen, and she's furious. She says, Sarah, it's me, your mother! And I say, yeah, I know. And she says, I'm in the South Pacific! I can't get hold of your father! I'm in the medical bay! I've had a severe reaction to my coconut sunscreen! Suddenly we fast forward again. It's 2018. I'm 41 years old, I'm sitting in my house in London. It's late at night, and I'm online looking at pictures of Russian drug addicts. Apparently there's this drug in Russia called crocodile. It's decimorphine. It's a synthetic opiate that's made from things like cooking up match heads, codeine, and lighter fluid. And it gets its name crocodile because wherever you inject it in your body, the point of injection atrophies and the skin goes scaly like a crocodile. And then that part of the body falls off. And then I realised that the whole reason I got online in the first place was to look up salmon recipes. Worse than that, I don't even need salmon recipes. It's 11 o'clock at night, I've already had my dinner. I'm procrastinating. I'm trying to write my new show, and I like to kid myself that falling down a click hole is somehow research. I want to do something different from my last shows. I want to do something looser, hopefully something bigger. And I've got this vague idea for a show about memories and hindsight, a series of seemingly random incidents that turn out to be a part of something much bigger. And I've been looking at videos about space and the universe. I watch a video about inventions we have NASA to thank for. It includes mobile phone cameras, memory foam mattresses, cordless tools, lube, and smoke detectors. I know. And I think, what the hell are they doing up there? And how fast are they doing it that it's creating smoke? And a bunch of recommended links pop up. A few of them are about the Challenger. I've got really vague recollections of the Challenger Space Shuttle disaster. It was 1986. I was 10 years old. The Challenger was going to get the best images of Halley's Comet ever. Halley's Comet had been spotted by a Chinese astronomer in 239 BC. It had been stitched into the Bayeux Tapestry when William the Conqueror saw it in 1066. And now we were going to get into a rocket and go up and join it. Challenger Space Shuttle was a big publicity stunt for NASA. The Americans weren't excited about space travel anymore. So in an attempt to get everyone interested in space again, NASA held a nationwide competition. A civilian, a teacher, was going to join the crew of the Challenger and teach a class from out in space via live satellite. 11,000 teachers applied. 11,000 teachers who would rather be in the eternal darkness of outer space than in a classroom of stinky kids. A woman named Krista McAuliffe won. What extraordinary good luck. A social studies teacher who emphasised the impact of ordinary people on history, saying they were as important as kings, politicians, and generals. I read a bit about her. I really like her. I click on the link and I watch the video. The crew of the Challenger are leaving NASA headquarters and they're posing for photos. They're smiling, cracking jokes, laughing, and they're waiting for the bus that's going to take them to the launch pad. The photos are finished, they all get on the bus takes them to the launch pad. The crowds are gathered, onlookers, families of the crew, smiling, excited. TV cameras everywhere, and this is being beamed live into classrooms across America. And then on the tannoy, the countdown, and the booster rockets fire into action, massive white clouds of smoke, and the rocket moves slowly up towards the heavens. The crowds cheer. This is the greatest civilization in human history. We can go anywhere and we can do anything. All we have to do is think it. And then, at 73 seconds, the single carbon trail shoots off into 2 carbon trails and they lose contact. It becomes apparent that none of this looks right. Then there's silence. The crowd's not cheering. It's now faces seeking reassurance. Hands are being held over mouths. 3 minutes, 38 seconds, and they're gone. It's over. The video has come to an end, and I start crying. And I wonder how many parents all those years ago stood on their lawns with their children, looking to the sky for Halley's Comet, or replaying this footage in their minds. And the little red bar sits at the end of a red timeline at the bottom of the YouTube video. I'm trying to write a show and I'm devastated. I put my finger on the pad of my computer and I scroll backwards in time. I drag the footage back in time to 15 seconds and there they all are again. They're leaving NASA and they're smiling and they're joking and they're excited, but it hasn't happened yet. I don't want to let it play out, but I let it play out. I hope for a moment that this is the bus that's never coming, but the bus arrives. Takes them to the launch pad, the crowds are cheering, we can do anything, we can go anywhere, all we have to do is think it. And the footage plays out again. At 73 seconds, the carbon trails part in the sky, making the letter Y. And like a god, I drag the little red bar back. The two carbon trails become one. We go back to NASA headquarters. We're at 15 seconds again. There is a time code where they're all safe, and none of this has happened yet. There's nothing but possibility. That moment exists. It's right there in front of me. All I have to do is hold them there. 15 seconds. And I call my dad. I ask him to tell me that story, the one he used to tell about the Chinese farmer and his horse. And I say to my dad, "Dad, I didn't see Halley's Comet." And my dad says, "Neither did I." And then my 75-year-old father says, "Well, maybe next time, eh?" And just as my dad hangs up the phone, I hear my mother in the background say, "I saw it!" I open up a document on my computer and I write down the words, "Good luck, bad luck. Who can tell?" Australian Trilogy was written by Sarah Kendall and Carl Cooper. It was performed by Sarah Kendall, produced by Carl Cooper. It was a BBC Studios production.